What's up, citizens? Welcome back to the City Daily channel. Today we're going to be talking City Football Group. All right, so obviously City have just come off the back of going into the Champions League quarterfinals and things, and we've had an all right month, really, considering. But I think today I want to talk about the CFG, right? And what is it? What does it really do? Why is it there? You know, why are people joining it? You know, those sorts of things. You know, who's actually a part of it as well? So, because I think the CFG is very much this shadow, I guess, over the top, and not many people sort of look at it or pay attention to it, but it's a very big part of the club, and it's a very important way, very important part, sorry, of how we do things, right? So a little bit of history first. So obviously City were bought back in 2008 by Sheikh Mansour and the Abu Dhabi United Group, which obviously led to loads of investment around the club, not just in the first team and the squad, right? So, I mean, we got a brand new academy and training facility. The stadium got expanded to 62,000, which made it the second biggest stadium in England at the time. You know, so it wasn't just the club that got investment; it was the rest of the area around it. It was, a lot of Manchester. So at that time, it was just the Abu Dhabi United Group, right? But then in 2012, Ferran Soriano comes, right? So Ferran Soriano previously worked at Barcelona and worked there for quite a few years. When around the 2012 time, basically they all got fed up of Juan Laporta's leadership at Barcelona, and him and I think 7 other board members left Barcelona, right? So Ferran Soriano's free. Ferran Soriano's got this really new sort of idea of what football is and what football business is all about, right? So his idea is international brands and international football business, right? So that's like his core principle, like this global football brand. The first thing that you wanted to do, as soon as CFG was made, sort of in 2012, around that time, right? So the first thing was the MLS. Because Soriano had already tried to build something Barcelona style in the MLS, and had conversations with them for years around it, right? And it was really close before he left. So he comes and joins Manchester City, right? And comes and joins what we've got going on. And suddenly the MLS thing kicks back off, right? So NYCFC then is announced in May of 2013. And it's sort of while they're setting up the new MLS side, the new franchise, and while this City sort of being built and things. So it's during the MLS transition that the CFG actually gets made, the City Football Group, to actually hold the two clubs within. So that's sort of like the history around it, how it came about and things. It very much was driven by Soriano's dream of international football, international branding, those sorts of things. And you never know, had Juan Laporta been a better leader, you might have seen a Barcelona-esque club in the MLS, rather than NYCFC that like we've got now, which obviously plays in Sky Blue, sponsored by Etihad. Very reminiscent crest and badge and everything. So it's that branding, right? So let's cover some of the other clubs that play in the CFG. So we've got Melbourne City FC, who used to be Melbourne Hearts. So we bought them back in around 2014. I think we paid about 12 million Australian dollars for the right to the club, right? Which, you pay more than that for a player these days. So we got Melbourne City FC back in 2014. In 2015, we then bought 20% in Yokohama F Marinos, who obviously play in the Japanese J1 League. And they stopped buying clubs and getting stakes in clubs for a little bit after that time. But then they come back with fight in 2017, right? And they buy up Club Atletico Torque, who we now know as Montevideo City Torque, and they've been playing in the Uruguayan second division, but obviously they were rebranded to Montevideo City Torque in 2020, along with a badge change. And then later on in 2017, Girona joined. We bought a stake in Girona, of course. Not really going to go into the details of that one too much because it's a little bit shady, right? Because the ownership of Girona is connected to Pep Guardiola, and obviously he was the incumbent manager at the time, so there's a little bit of shade around that. I'll be honest, I didn't look too much into it. I'm probably a little bit worried looking too much into it, but I digress, right? So then again, they have a little break, right? They have a little break for a couple of years, and then 2019 they come back, right? So Chinese third division side, Sichuan Jinyu, which I would be stunned if you've ever heard of, because I had never heard of them before either. Before researching for this video, right? So, and again, third tier in Chinese football seems a bit out there, right? So, and then we had Melbourne, not Melbourne, I've already covered Melbourne, Mumbai City, too close, you see, Mumbai City Football Club, who are the 20th franchise in the Indian Super League, right? And they just won the domestic title back in India, so, you know, good on them. And then in 2020 we came back to Europe, and we've added the club Lommel and the club Troy. So Lommel plays in the Belgian second tier of football, and Troy plays in the French second tier of football. I think the reason why we buy clubs a lot in either we only buy top tier teams if they're in other countries and other areas of the world, right? So you're India, you're Australia, and then around Europe we tend to buy slightly lower down sides. That's obviously because of Champions League and things like that. We don't want to jeopardise Manchester City's involvement or any other club's involvement in that competition by being an owner in a club that would be a part of that competition, right? So we're obviously affiliated with other clubs as well. So there is Atletico Venezuela, who play in Venezuela. What a surprise. And NAC, I always get that wrong, NAC Breda, who play in Holland's second division as well. And of course we are sort of affiliated with RSC Anderlecht, who play in the Belgian first division. Now our connection with RSC Anderlecht is very much just sort of a training one and a developmental one. We don't own a stake in the club. Obviously, Vincent Kompany is currently there, so we've got close ties with the club. We send players there on loan. They send players to us for training and things like that. So it's a tight relationship, but it's not necessarily a formal business relationship between the CFG and RSC Anderlecht, right? A strange aside here, right? So CFG bought a stake in this company called Goal Soccer Centers, and they run like five-a-side pitches in America, right? And it was just meant as this like weird little thing that happened in America, and they were just like, yeah, we'll help you out. But then they started going bust, right? This company, Goal Soccer Centers. So when they started going bust, CFG just bought the rest of it. So now CFG, alongside all these clubs with all these fan bases and things, also owns a Goal Soccer Center company, which runs five-a-side football centers in California. Which obviously we use now more as like a Manchester City outreach style thing, like, you know, like City in the community now around Manchester City, where you've got loads of coaches and stuff go out into the community, and they help local schools and local football clubs and things with training. So it's that sort of style, but five-a-side in California, right? But I just thought that's a real weird thing that we're a part of, right? So next I'm going to cover what's the actual draw of the CFG. Like, why are people joining the City Football Group, right? Now, obviously, the big one, money. CFG is not poor. We keep investing. Manchester City Football Club is not poor. So there's no lack of financial support around the group. And that came in clutch for teams like Lommel and Troyes, who were in dire financial need, right, before they were bought out. And now they're probably as secure as they have been for the last 30, 40 years. And I think that gives them some sort of realm of freedom, right, to sort of be a bit more courageous and a bit more challenging with maybe players that they take on and try and train, or staff that they take on, right? So a big part of that is the financial security. Secondly, and this is one that's probably more aimed at Manchester City more than anything, right? So it's the international links. So Manchester City, as a football club, can only scout so much so far, right? So in England, obviously, we've got quite a deep scouting network. I imagine we have quite deep scouting networks in other parts of Europe as well, right? But they're not penetrating deep, right? We don't really hit some of this grassroots level, because you can't do that all over the world, right? But now we can, because Mumbai City will have its own scouting team that look in and around India and maybe looking in Nepal for Nepalese football players. You might find some Himalayan climber who just happens to be able to put a football on a sixpence, and that would be a perfect mix. But Manchester City themselves would maybe never find that talent. But Mumbai City, because they're much closer, obviously in geographical proximity, but obviously sort of relationship as well wise, it would be a lot easier for them to do that. And it's about building this international network of clubs and therefore international network of scouting that really builds on and makes sure that clubs are getting A, value for their money, and B, it makes sure that the best players are coming through in these areas. It's also obviously a developmental opportunity for them, because a club like Mumbai City, without the financial backing, might not have gone for the Himalayan climber who can put a football on a sixpence, because it's a bit out there, right? He might not. What if he can only do it on a mountain? What if he can only do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke, right? So it's the level that we're playing at now, where because there's so much financial security and things, and because we're building all the international links, it builds in that level of risk. We can take more risks, and that's exciting, not just for Manchester City, but for clubs like Lommel, for clubs like Melbourne City, for clubs like Montevideo Torque, right? And it makes a lot more sense. Sort of a good example, so I'll give you an example of this one. Aaron Moy, right? So Aaron Moy was playing in Australia. Melbourne City found him, signed him at Melbourne City. Obviously, he then comes very obviously onto the Manchester City radar. He then moves to Manchester City. Obviously, he doesn't play with us, unfortunately, but he goes out to Huddersfield, right, and shows off what he can do in Huddersfield. And because he shows off what he can do, and on a stage like the Premier League, the opportunities open up, don't they? He's playing in the Australian national team now, and has been doing very well for them, right? He's a rather key player for that Australian national team. He's a very good ball player. So that's sort of how it comes to City. I mean, obviously it works vice versa as well. Like, we send out our loan talent. We sent 14 players out on loan last year, and a majority of those went to CFG related clubs, right? So it's not just developmental for us as Manchester City, but I think the goal is to improve all clubs equally where possible, right? Obviously, Manchester City, we play in the biggest league in the world, the Premier League, and we play in some of the hardest competitions in the world, like the Champions League and things like that. So if there becomes a rising talent on the circuit, right, someone who looks like they're going to absolutely pop off, there will probably be some backroom shenanigans to try and get that player to come to Manchester City. Of course there will. But that would happen with any other club if someone came onto their radar, right? So, I mean, Haaland, I covered him on the video the other week, right? So, everyone wants him. But I think this gives us that head start, right? Alongside players, the group obviously offers opportunities to staff as well, right? So, we get experiences from all over the globe with the City Football Group. Great examples of this include Nick Cushing, who moved from the Man City women's team and now manages at NYCFC. And vice versa, the NYCFC academy coach, right, Liam Manning, has now gone and taken control of Lommel's first team, right? So, yeah, it's insider, but we're moving staff around. We're giving them more experience. We're trying to build up their experience base and giving them opportunities to work with different types of players. An academy coach is going to be working with very young talent, young people who either think they're God's gift or young people who are scared to come out of their shell and show off, right? Whereas he'll move to a club like Lommel now and he'll be dealing with probably some older players as well as younger talent, right? And he'll be managing the sort of the strange social dynamic that presents. So it builds their experience. Now, the question sort of finally is obviously why? Why do we go through all this trouble as Manchester City? And I think the big answer for that is it's about branding, right? So Soriano believed for a very long time that the next logical step for football as a business was international. International franchises, businesses, all of that, right? So it wanted to create that. And that's what we've been doing, you know, with clubs like NYCFC, Montevideo City Talk, Melbourne City, Mumbai City. They've all got that city name for first off, but they all play in a blue kit, a sky blue kit. They all play with a badge, very reminiscent of the City badge. So that branding is there. You look at it and you go, that's a City Football Group club, right? You can just spot it. Or they want to be like Manchester City, and then you look into it and you go, oh, it's because they're sort of owned by them. So that, you know, I don't think it's not about making Manchester City the top name. It's about making the name City recognisable, and making the name City sort of like Manchester's, right? So when you hear City, you go, Man City. Obviously, we get that in the Premier League already, but you might not in Australia or something, right? So, yeah, that was sort of a very quick, dirty look at what the CFG is, who's in it, and why they're in it, right? So thank you so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed. Obviously, if you did, let me know down below, the quick likes, comments. Maybe you want to subscribe if you're that way inclined, right? I'm thinking about doing some sort of more monthly roundups of like CFG clubs, so like how they've been performing in their home leagues, as well as some more stuff about Manchester City. So I'll probably end up covering like Manchester City, obviously the first team, but like the academies, the under-23s and things, and the women's team. I'm thinking about doing sort of monthly roundups for how their month have gone, right? So let me know as well down below, comment if you'd like that sort of content, because if you would, I think it would be interesting to look at, and I'd definitely love to do it for you guys. So let me know, yeah? But anyway, thank you so much. Hope you have a great week, citizens, and up the Blues.